Do you ever stop and ask yourself, what am I doing? Hey, I'm Sam, and this is Super Awesome You Brave Enough Today, a podcast for anyone who's ever stood in their own way, second guessed their dreams, or let fear make them smaller than they really are. Each week, we'll talk about building confidence, showing up scared, and taking one small step towards a life you actually want. You don't have to be fearless, just brave enough today. I have been spending a lot of time with that question in my mind, just on repeat, basically. What am I doing? And I think it's a really natural question to ask yourself when you are, especially when you are pursuing a goal, pursuing something that you really are excited to do, at least initially excited to do, something that keeps popping up in your life over and over. Maybe it's a fitness goal, maybe it's a business goal, maybe it's a relationship goal, maybe it's that you wanted to move to a new country, a new city, and it just keeps coming up in your mind and it's hard to ignore. But then whenever you start making progress towards that goal and the initial excitement dies down and you find yourself just kind of moving in silence, I think that's when that voice makes itself loudest. And that is the experience that I've been having the last several weeks where I just stop and ask myself as I'm posting on threads or posting on Substack or recording this podcast or publishing on Instagram, or trying a video on YouTube. You stop and you wonder, like, what am I doing? What is this actually what I'm supposed to be doing? Does this make any sense? Is this a waste of my time? And I'm reminded of the exact experience that I have when I am running a big race. The first time I signed up for New York Roadrunners race, I was very excited. Then the first time I signed up for a New York Roadrunners half marathon, I was excited. And then I started to train. And then the night before, I was very emotional. And I was also, very, very much questioning what the heck I was doing. And I see this a lot on social media as well. I follow a lot of running accounts, and so I get a lot of running content in my feeds. And honestly, I love reading when someone is like, "Oh my goodness, my first half marathon or my first marathon is tomorrow. Am I crazy? What am I doing? Why did I do this to myself?" It's so natural to question yourself in moments right before you test who you are. And I think that's really what is so special about reaching for these challenges is you are discovering who you are. You are finding a piece of you that might be long lost, might be buried, might be something you didn't even know was there. And that can be a very terrifying experience. That can be a scary thing to do. I say this all the time on the show, but change is scary. Change is uncomfortable. Our brains do not like change. It does not like the unknown. It doesn't like to not be able to predict what's going to happen next. And so, whenever you do something new, like sign up for a half marathon distance, of course, it has no idea how you're going to feel, how your body's going to do. You maybe haven't ever even run past 10 miles in your training, and you're just staring at that 13.1 and thinking, how am I going to run another 3 miles after running 10? And so your brain starts to feed in that voice, that negative voice to try to keep you safe, try to protect you, try to keep you the same, basically, because the same is predictable. But here's what is so interesting about that voice, right? That same voice is trying to protect you, trying to get you to cancel something, trying to get you to bow out, trying to get you to go back to what you were doing before is right next to another voice in that exact same brain, right? In all the millions of folds and all the neurons and everything, all the complexity of our brain, there's another voice. And that voice is telling you, go for it. You can do this. You want to do this. You remember the why of what you're doing. You remember that you have a goal, that you set a goal, and you remember that you want to start to break the pattern of letting yourself down potentially, or break the pattern of starting something and then quitting and then restarting it and then quitting. And you just reach a point where the pain and the frustration of restarting is greater than the pain of the unknown and the pain of the challenge that you're about to pursue. And you'd rather be in that challenging space than be in the space that is all too familiar to you now, which is that space of, here I am again, starting over. I wish I didn't quit the first time. And that is where I've been as I've pursued starting this Super Awesome Mix podcast many years ago. and Super Awesome You, specifically this show, I wonder sometimes, what am I doing? Like, does this make any sense? But I'm always drawn back to it. I'm always drawn back to wanting to write on motivation and write on drive and write on why we do the things that we do, and trying to tie in a mix of self-development and self-discovery with my background in neurobiology and my background as an entrepreneur and my interest in fitness and marathoning, and I was a spin instructor, and like all these things in my life, all these puzzle pieces that I can't help but feel fit together into a single portrait, into a single painting of who I am and who I want to be. And it just calls to me over and over again. And every time I turn my back on it, or every time I walk away thinking, okay, yeah, maybe it's not going to work. The pieces don't fit. I'm drawn back to it. It might be a month, it might be several years, it might be a decade, where I find myself pulling that box down from the shelf with all these puzzle pieces and being like, I think I can tackle it this time. And that's a very scary thing to do because, again, we are faced with a fear of failure, but we need to change how we understand failure. And I know everyone says that, and I read it all the same as much as you read it, right? Failure is not doing something. Failure isn't trying something and realizing you can't do it that way. The Thomas Edison example has been used to death about how, oh, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I just found 10,000 times, to not make a light bulb, et cetera, et cetera. All of that sounds great, but none of that is actually the reality of failing. None of that actually speaks to how painful it is to fail. How you put so much into something, you put a piece of you into your attempt, that it is really difficult not to feel that in your core, and not to feel like somehow you have let yourself down, your friends down, your family down, your community down. You're going to feel crummy. It's a crummy experience. I think we need to talk more about that. Failure sucks. Going after trying to start a business and having it fail or run out of money, or going into a startup and having it fail and run out of money, or moving to a new city and then realizing you just don't like the city and you need to move back. You're going to feel crummy. There's no shortcut around that, right? There's no quick fix there. But just don't allow yourself to feel that for very long. That would be my new advice to my younger self if I could give him that advice. Yes, it sucks and you're going to be unhappy, but just don't be unhappy for long. Learn what you can from it. Take what you can from that experience. There's a great Steve Jobs quote. I believe he gave it in his Stanford commencement speech. And he said, effectively something, I'm paraphrasing here, but you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only ever connect the dots looking back. What he means by that is, when I'm in that moment of having quote unquote failed at an attempt and I feel really down and I feel like this sucks and I'm never going to be successful, and all that negative self-talk is spiraling, I don't yet know what this will lead to. I only know where I'm at now, and I can only look back at where I was before. And I'm willing to bet, because this has been the pattern my entire life. If I just kind of wait it out a little bit, and if I find, I grieve the loss, I grieve the failure, but then get back on my feet and keep moving forward, in a year, I will look back and be like, oh, that's what I needed to learn from that. Like, that is why I failed then. And that is the lesson that I took. Or that actually opened up this other door that I had been ignoring for ages. And once I walked through that door, things started to turn around, or I got this new opportunity, and that opportunity led to a different opportunity. And you see what I'm saying, right? Like, looking back, it's much easier to piece all the pieces together. It's much easier to connect the dots. In the moment, you have no idea what's next. But I think train yourself to believe that what's next will be something exciting, or will be what you need to do in order to move forward. Because at least for me, and I hope certainly for you, there is a pattern of growth every step of the way. You are not the same person you were last attempt. Just biologically speaking, you literally were not the same person. Our cells are recycling, our genetics are changing, our experiences have changed, time has passed. So you might feel like the same person, but you're not. You might have been doing the same things, but things are different. The world is different. And this attempt is yet another in your growth story. It's another in the journey that you are taking in order to get to where you want. The only thing that can be different, and the only thing you actually need to focus on, is loving what you're doing and loving the process and understanding the process and loving the fact that it's going to be crummy at times and you're not going to love it all the time. It's kind of ironic, but you have to be comfortable with the fact that there's going to be lots of ups, there's going to be lots of downs. That is the cycle. That is the whole thing of growing and moving towards a goal. And I don't think that gets talked enough about. I think whenever we listen to and read and watch all these videos about seeking goals, they're 30-second snippets, 60-second snippets, and they only ever talk about like, "Oh, push through and you'll get there. Push through and you'll get there." Again, that's a really easy sentiment to just wrap up into a nice little sentence, into a nice clip, but there could be years and decades of effort wrapped into just push through and you'll get there, right? It's not 30 seconds. It is a long journey, and you need to be really comfortable with how long that journey can take potentially. And you need to be comfortable with the process of falling, failing, getting back up, trying again, taking what you can, learn the lessons, moving forward, believing in yourself, being okay with not believing in yourself, being okay with the doubt. I've always said that if you hear that voice of doubt, it means that you are doing something new, and you should embrace that voice of doubt because that's growth. The doubt is trying to keep you the same, and you are going to overcome that voice. You are going to push and test the boundaries of what your brain and your heart can do. And you're going to surprise yourself, and you're going to then do it again and do it again. And that becomes a muscle that you practice, and it just gets stronger through time. First time it's going to be really difficult. Second, third, fourth time, maybe a little bit easier. Then at some point, you're just going to be trying new things all the time because you've learned to just basically not give an F anymore. Excuse my sort of language. You're just going to realize that, like, this is all kind of the point. The point is to just test things and to just try things and to be okay with not knowing what you're doing and to be okay with that voice. That voice is going to become almost like a familiar friend in your mind. That voice that pops up and says, "What am I doing?" And you're going to learn to answer it. You're going to learn to answer it very confidently. And you're going to say, "I'm chasing my dream. I'm pursuing what matters to me. I'm doing what I love." And that should be an answer that is good enough for you, that is good enough for others, that is good enough for you to keep going. If you are doing what you love and you're not harming anyone, you're not harming yourself, and you're not damaging relationships, and nothing negative is happening, but you're building a podcast, or you're writing on Substack, or you're growing an audience, or you're posting makeup videos, or you're moving to a city you've dreamed of moving to for your entire life, and you're doing all these things lovingly and responsibly, you have to trust in the goal. You have to trust that it calls to you for a reason, and you have to just do your best to give it a shot. Believe that it can happen, and that's the first step, and take those actions towards making it happen. And don't be fooled by the 30-second Instagram clips that just tell you to push through and it'll be okay. They're not wrong, but they're very dismissive of the fact that pushing through could take 10 years. It's not necessarily a 30-second thing that you're gonna do. It's not necessarily a day-long thing you're gonna do. It could literally take years for you to fight for what you want, but I promise you, when you get there, it will be absolutely worth it, and everyone's gonna wanna hear your story, and they're all gonna wanna know how you did it, and you'll smile, and you'll be like, "I just did it." I mean, I think that that's the thing. Nike kinda nailed it with their slogan. I hate to give them so much credit, but there's a reason they haven't changed their slogan in a billion years. Like, at the end of the day, you just need to do the thing. You do the thing. You send the email, you write the post, you move to the city, you get the job, you quit the job, you start the company, you start the relationship, you end the relationship, whatever thing is in front of you that you're afraid to take that step, but you feel in your heart that that step is what you need to do next, you just have to do it. There's no hacks, there's no shortcuts, there's no way to make it easier. It's going to be hard. It's going to test you. It's going to fill you with doubt. Your brain's going to try to protect you from it. But if it keeps calling to you, there's probably a reason for that. And I have learned, at least in my life, to listen to that voice, trust that intuition that is telling me, to take down that puzzle box and piece all the pieces together, or at least try one more time, because you never know. All it takes is that one time where the puzzle pieces come together for you to just keep rolling with it and realize, like, wow, I am where I want to be and I did it. Like, I'm the one who made that happen. And people supported you along the way, and you should never be dismissive of that. I am not an island. I only can do what I do because of my loving family and friends and community and all of you, all of the listeners and supporters. But at the end of the day, I'm the one making the choices. I'm the one making those decisions. I'm supported by everyone around me, but it's my effort, and it will be your effort. You are the one that crosses the finish line, whether it's a real finish line in a race or a metaphorical finish line for your goal. So, as always, this is your reminder every week to keep going, stay kind, and be brave enough today.